Hey, welcome back for another Story Time, where I tell you some of my favorite travel stories. This one is talking about one of the coldest nights, actually the coldest night of my life. It's when I was climbing Mount Kenya. Now, Mount Kenya is the second tallest mountain in Africa, second only to Mount Kilimanjaro, which is actually in Tanzania. Used to be in Kenya, but then when they were trying to placate the Germans, they moved the border of Tanzania, which was controlled by Germany, to include South Africa, to include Kilimanjaro in Tanzania. So anyway, it's kind of an unknown little piece of fact for you there. But Mount Kenya, second highest mountain in there. I didn't climb to the top of the actual mountain. There's Nelian, Batian, and Lenana. And those were the three main chiefs for the Kikuyu nation. It was in the Kikuyu tribe, tribal nations part. And most people that were not technical climbers, we would climb to Point Lenana, which was 16,399 feet. So, you know, I went with the British guy. His name was Richard. You know, I travel a lot with Limeys. You know, the Brits are big travel people. The Germans too. You see those guys in the middle of nowhere where people had never seen white people before, and you would see the Brits or the Germans, you know, going on next to nothing. It was very common for Richard to spend the night in the police stations because they didn't care if you wanted to stay in there, because he thought, oh, this is great, I don't have to pay any money. And I'm like, dang, man, you'd rather sleep in the cop shop than out here? He said, yeah, well, it's free, you know. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to pay 10 shillings for this, which is about $1.50. You know, we used to have a hammock, but he thought that was crazy. But I guess he was traveling all the way down to South Africa from Kenya, which was thousands of miles. So, you know, I guess every shilling counted for him. I wasn't up to sleeping in the cop shop. But anyway, I was traveling with him and to going up to Point Lenana. Now, we were traveling in around November, December, so it was a dry part of the year. So actually, we had made it up to the base camp where we were going to stop at this kind of like ranger station thing, which was basically a metal shack. Now, I don't know if you know much about insulation, but tin is not it. You know, it's not only going to keep the wind off you, but it definitely doesn't keep the cold out because it's tin, you know. And I remember Mount Kenya is one of the most dangerous mountains to climb because you end up getting pulmonary edema, which is like this mountain sickness, because you start out so high anyway. Just the base of the mountain is like 7,000 feet, and when you're walking up over that 2 days, you go up so fast, so high, that it ends up a lot of people get sick, and especially the technical climbers can kill them. So Richard had a way of getting out of work. So I had the backpack with nearly everything in it, and he was carrying this little like day pack type of thing, you know. Now, I was in pretty good shape. I still am in pretty good shape. But climbing up that kind of stuff, carrying a 50-pound pack up, you know, up to about, I guess that first night was like 14,000 feet. That was pretty tough. And I was getting like, my chest was hurting real bad, you know. And he was like, oh, well, here, let me help you carry it. Because we were almost there. Here, let me help you carry your thing. You don't look too good, Tim. And I'm like, well, okay, here you go, Richard. And he's like, wow, this thing's bloody uncomfortable. I'm like, yeah, it's like 5 times heavier than yours. He looks kind of sheepishly like, oh, yeah, I guess that could be it. Part of the problem there. So we get up to the little shack thing. And you know, well, of course, I'm just thirsty. But the problem is it's below freezing. So you don't have anything to drink because all your water bottles are solid ice. That was kind of a bummer. Now, you know, you in your mind, you know it's going to be cold. But, you know, when you're down at 7,000 feet and you're in, you know, t-shirt, short pants, and flip-flops all day long, every day, it doesn't really occur to you, you know, maybe I should be dressed for like Arctic weather because it's going to be very, very cold. So I had, you know, had as much warm stuff as I had, but I wasn't nearly prepared enough. So I got up in that place, you know, was very uncomfortable, had been feeling bad. I don't think I'd actually had like a heart attack or anything like this, but it just felt like somebody had been just like jumping up and down on my chest, basically. So I wasn't feeling well. Just killer headache, and because of the altitude. And so I'm trying to sleep. Now, I had this, you know, my camping gear was basically for Texas, which is where I had done most of my camping. I used to live outside for, you know, days. And, you know, I had all my camping gear was kind of for milder weather. So I had like a black, like, piece of plastic, was like a vapor barrier. And I had my sleeping bag, which was, again, you know, basically rated for like maybe 40-degree weather, you know, very thin. And then I had my other clothes on. Well, it kept getting colder and colder and colder. And I just kept putting all the clothes on that I had. Every pair of socks, every sweater, jacket, my raincoat, everything I had on inside of me, and just shaking, just shivering because I was so cold. And you know, Richard is on the top bunk, I'm on the bottom bunk, and every time he would move around, you would have like this, there was this crummy kind of little foam mattress sort of thing that, you know, would just like, it would like be little tiny particles of foam hitting you in the face and stuff because it was so old. And so, you know, you're trying to breathe and you're kind of covering up like this. And then, you know, I'm on this black plastic. Well, the real downside to where we were staying was that it was part of the trail. It was one of the camps, but because we were trying to save money, in particular because Richard was, you know, this place wasn't used very much. And so basically the rats had taken it over. So all night long I was listening to this, because every time that they would get near me, they'd be on that plastic, and I could hear them walking on that plastic around me. And they were known that if you really went to sleep, that what they would do is they would like bite your ears, something like that, to try to, you become food. Now, I don't know about you, but when you're trying to go to sleep and you're hearing rats crawling around you and you're afraid they're going to bite you in the face, it's really hard to sleep, you know. So definitely one of the most miserable nights I've ever spent in my night. One of those lives that when you try to just think, oh, if only daylight will come. And surely enough, finally you could start seeing the pink rays of the sun coming up, and you know, I would get out of that thing and start making a fire so that I could, you know, melt some water so I could actually drink something because I was so thirsty. Finally got that going, and later that day we climbed on up to Point Lenana, which was an extraordinary experience. You could actually, from the top of that thing, you could actually see Kilimanjaro, which was nearly 300 miles away. Just a beautiful experience and all. But that was one of the worst, coldest nights of my life. And that was another Story Time.